It's the Dreamscape.
Welcome back, dreamers, to the Indie Synergy Exchange podcast, your podcast for all things indie art and creation. I am your host, Tanner Giese, also known as Number 2 Pencil Man and owner of Tanner's Tales Entertainment. And joining me tonight, I have two of my wonderful co-hosts. We have Katie Giese, my wife. She's a poet and author. And then we have Rachel, aka Andromeda the Artist, who is a musician, poet, author, and multi-creative. Well, we're all kind of multi-creative. And we also have a special guest with us tonight. Her name is Kata Kane, and she is a illustrator, comic book creator, and multi-talented creator as well.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks for having me.
We are so excited to have you, Kata. But before we get started, I just wanted to shout out everybody who's been enjoying our podcast. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you are liking the podcast, please consider giving us a like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Help us build this platform so that we can showcase other indies and get them in the spotlight that they deserve. We have plenty of other episodes out as well. This is episode 14 now. So we are at episode 14, which is super exciting. We've had multiple interviews with many other talented creatives in the past. So if you guys haven't seen those, definitely go check them out. They're awesome. And also get to know us, the four of us, which Frey is not with us tonight. His work schedule's still a little wonky. But there are four of us who are the core four of this group. And we also do episodes there. So you can learn more about us as well. So without further ado, we'll jump right into this. We have Kata Kane here. So Kata, introduce yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
Sure. So I say my name Kata. A lot of people say it differently. So it's just like cat, but yeah, so Kata. And I do illustration, graphic design, and comics. And I got to meet you guys through comics, through comic conventions. So I feel like that's, the most fun thing to talk about. But I also I really like that you guys were talking about, multi-passionate creative. I think is a phrase that I've used a lot lately to describe myself, because I do a variety of creative things in my freelance career. So comics and illustration are the most fun part of that for me. But I also do graphic design and publishing, marketing, stuff like that. So yeah, which I enjoy too. So
very extensive.
Yeah.
I love it. Do you guys want to get started?
Well, I mean, I think the most obvious question is, how did you get started, Kata? By the way, I love your name, Kata Kane. That's just so cool.
Thank you. So my it's a nickname, but I've never gone by my full name. My parents gave me, the full name and never called me that. So yeah, just get to have the nickname. It's fun. But as far as getting started in comics, I feel like I'm one of those kids that, like, in elementary school, when they asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, I always had an answer to that question. The first answer was author-illustrator. I really liked books, illustrated books. I really wanted to tell stories and draw the pictures that went with those stories. So I would always say author illustrator. And I really liked reading like Sunday funnies, like the Sunday newspaper. That was like the easiest access to comics. But also, at school, we would talk about X-Men was really big, and the show was really big. The trading cards were really big. Mm-hmm. So that was those superhero comics, like X-Men, Superman, Batman. Those, were more accessible. But it was really when I discovered manga that I was like, oh, you can tell like a long form story. I want to be a comics creator, and these are my kind of comics. Um, like for anybody who is anime
Hmm.
fan, Sailor Moon was like my gateway drug into the world of manga and anime.
It's a
And
classic.
yeah, so watching that, I started out watching that on TV and then discovered that it was a comic, a manga at my local shop. And I just, fell in love with that. And I think I also saw, characters that I found more relatable. As a young girl, I was
Mm.
reading comics about other, young girls and magical stuff. So yeah, I feel like I always like drawing and telling stories. And yeah, like my comic Alter Girl that I do as a web comic, I came up with the um idea for that. I was like 16. It was
Oh
like
wow.
me doodling in class, and it kind of started out with like some words on a page, kind of like a very cheesy emo poem that I would feel a little embarrassed probably to share maybe one day, maybe one day. But yeah, and then creating this character and then creating a story around it. So yeah, comics have just always been a part of my life. I can't quit them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That for so you wanted to do that for a very long time, it
Yeah.
seems.
Yeah, I think like I've told that story, to people before, and that's why I contextualize it as, yeah, I was that kid that on, career day, what do you want to be when you grow up? I was like, yeah, that's what I want. That's what I
That
want to do.
that's awesome. And
Yeah.
you said you were 16 when you came up with the idea for Alta Girl. When did you actually take it from the idea to the web comic that we now know and we now love? I know Katie's got all five of the books.
And I read all of them, and I can't say that for any other comic or
Oh,
anything.
It is true.
that makes me so happy. I just feel like, especially with like Alter Girl, it's a story that like I definitely am making with like a lot of like love and maybe even like self-indulgence is what I want to say. Like it's something that I'm like, since it's self-published, like, I don't have to answer to anyone but myself, so I'm trying to do something and it's really personal. And so when it resonates with people, I just know that, that we're just on a same wavelength of like understanding and like seeing the kind of stories we want to tell. I was 18 when I first put it online.
Oh wow.
And now I'm 19. So no,
I
no,
believe
but it was yeah, it was either my senior year of high school. I think it was the summer between my senior year of high school going into college that I put Alter Girl online for the first time.
Wow.
And I kind of did it at the time. I had another comic concept that I was really like invested in and wanted it to be perfect. And I was like, well, I'll just do the Alter Girl thing because that's more low stakes. It'll be more
it.
fun.
Hmm.
But that ended up becoming like, I'm doing it like, decades later. So it's really like a life long project. So
Mm.
yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
that's when I first put it online. I took a big break though for like a decade.
Wow.
I graduated college. I was like, oh, I better get a career. I think I can see the ways in which I was kind of discouraged from pursuing a comics
Mm.
career, that it was not going to be a stable career, that I should have think more realistically and use creative skills. So that's where the graphic design kind of comes in.
Hmm.
But I'm really grateful for the graphic design skills that I have, and I enjoy graphic design too. I genuinely love it. I like you know, it helps with comics too, making my own books, doing layouts, stuff like that, just knowing, that information. But yeah, and then I started doing Alter Girl again. It was 2012, the version that exists now in book format. So like those
Oh.
first five books, 2012 was when I was like, I'm restarting Alter Girl, doing it for real. The intention is print. And so, yeah, I think 2014 was when the book one got published through self publishing. And A
Wow.
lot of those things did not exist back then.
Mm-hmm.
When I was first, doing this, I was just kind of like scanning in pencil drawings and putting it on a website. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's come a long way.
Awesome.
Wow. And you got like 5 books in print, right?
Yes, 5 books in print. And I have the 6th book is completed online, and the 7th book has started. So I do that on my Patreon.
Okay.
So people get early access on Patreon. Then, I release it. I do a Kickstarter campaign. The last Kickstarter campaign I did was for books 4 and 5 at the same time. So I'm
Mm.
kind of hoping to finish book 7 so I can do 6 and 7 at the same time.
Wow.
And then 8 is the last book. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so we're getting towards the end here.
Wow.
Wow. Did
Yeah.
you write it with the intention for it to be 8 books, like from the start, or did you want
Yeah.
it to go longer?
So I think when I first was doing Ultra Girl back when I was a teenager, I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants. Like I was just like,
Mm.
then this will happen, then that'll happen, and I'll figure it out. And doing this new version and being older and having more experience, I was like, yeah, I know these story beats that I want to hit. I know what I want for certain characters, where I want them to end up. So I was able to do an outline, and I was able to kind of say, okay, I want it to be 3 chapters per book, and
Mm.
organize it more. So yeah, it did it. I don't know that at the very beginning of when I was organizing it that I knew it was going to be 8 books,
Mm.
but the way that it went, 8 is where it landed, and I like where that landed, and really, it's really for me, it was about the amount of chapters,
Mm.
and how many chapters it was, and so how I split those chapters over several books. So
Very
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Did you guys have any questions?
I'm. I mean, I
Go,
have a
go
few.
ahead. Go ahead.
If you want to go first, that's fine.
Oh no, I just really like the physical book format. I'm really not much of an online person,
Yeah.
so I was just curious if the last 3 books will be available in print at some point in
Yes.
time. Okay, great.
Definitely. My intention is always to get it to print. I really like doing it as a webcomic because I want to share it with people,
Mm,
even though it's like, I'm giving like a free access to read it on my website at author-girl.com.
Mm.
Um, I
I'll pull
I
that up.
want to share it with people. So, yeah, and I was worried about that when I first did the first Kickstarter that I was like, oh, I wonder if people will want to buy these books. They could just read it online for free. And yeah, I've every Kickstarter I've done for the books has been a success and even has met stretch goals. So
Huh.
I think there's something to be said for, print comics too, because I'm the same.
Mm.
I used to read a lot of web comics. I don't necessarily have time to read web comics anymore. So I also prefer a print book myself when I'm reading things. But you can see on my website, I kind of have it organized by chapters and books, and you can go buy the book too. And I kind of like still keeping my little space of the internet, especially in the world we're in now, where a lot of people I think put things on places like Facebook or Instagram, and that becomes like their space, and like that,
Mm.
you don't really own that space. So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
mm.
yeah, so you can see on the website, book 6 is there. And it explains that, my patrons got access to the full chapter before it was here. So
Very cool.
if you're really invested in the story, you want to know what's going to happen. And chapter 19, it says read on Patreon. Chapter 19 um, is out. So that is on my Patreon completed. Um, yeah, and the next chapter, uh, I've been working on it. Life has happened. So,
Yeah.
oh, these are cute. These are so old. These little character bios.
Oh
It's
wow.
funny. Like the
I love
drawings.
the art style.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I really am very fascinated by this. I really want to read this now.
Thank you.
This is my first introduction, is like literally right now, and
Yeah.
seconds before we started this podcast, and
Yeah.
I'm really enamored already. It's kind of sucking me in and fascinating me because I I don't know. It's different, but it's got a
Mhm.
great personality to it, and it's very. I love the colors. It's very fun. I love that it's kind of female centric too. It looks, at least, which
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't really ever read manga. I've read comics, but not
Hmm.
manga. So this is very new for me. It's
That's awesome. It's definitely, I would say it's like manga inspired. One
okay.
of my friends described it as Archie meets anime. And I was
Mm.
like, I'm going to just use that
Mhm.
tagline. Thank you. I'll give you like a credit, except I never give them a credit. Um, but yeah, so it's kind of like that, like crossover because I'm very much still inspired by American comics too,
Mhm.
but the manga style and just like the expressiveness and the way the storytelling notes kind of hit and like the romance and stuff like that, I really yeah, I really like combining both.
Yeah, I will say one thing that I think that manga has over like American comics is it definitely has the ability to convey the emotions on a more powerful level as opposed to a comic where I feel like comics are more story driven, not
Mhm.
as much into the emotional state of the characters. I feel like
Yeah.
manga actually does somewhat of a better job at building the characters up and giving them more depth.
Yeah, and I think to Rachel's point a second ago, like without gendering the two, that it does feel like when it's female centered, a story is female centered, more emotion can come through.
Mm.
And it's not that males don't have emotions or feel things, obviously, of course they do, but we explore it, I think, differently
Yeah.
in American comics, you know versus Japanese manga. And there's so many different ways to tell stories, and comics in general have become so much more um than like when I was first like a kid reading stuff. I feel like there's so much more out there
Hmm.
that
Mhm.
appeals to so many different types of readers, and I think that's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just gonna ask, like, I'm curious if you just developed your style on your own, or if you ever like took lessons or did anything like that. Just because, like, I'm a self-taught pianist, so like
Hmm.
I learned how to play the piano on my own. But then I also had a lot of lessons for flute, so it's like I'm always kind of curious how every artist develops their style and how that journey starts.
Yeah.
Mm.
I would definitely describe myself more as self-taught,
Hmm.
but when I was in um definitely, in art classes in elementary and middle school too, I was, always loving art class. But I feel like in high school, I got to do more creative things, and that's kind of when I was developing and this style and reading manga. I remember some of the first books that I got. I actually took tracing paper and just put the tracing paper right over the comic and drew pictures of like Sailor Moon, some of my favorite panels that I thought were really pretty. And I never tried to be like, look, I drew this. It was really just me being like, I want to learn how to
Hmm.
make these shapes and see how it
Mm.
like comes together.
Yeah.
But in college, I definitely took more you know, life drawing, stuff like that. I definitely think that even if you have like a cartoony comic book manga kind of style, um, life drawing is helpful. Proportions is
Mhm.
helpful. So having some kind of lessons in there is good. I don't ever think it's necessary. Like you were saying, you're self-taught. You kind of taught yourself what you needed to know, but
Mhm.
you also were able to go to the sources
Yeah.
that helped you to
Mhm.
increase your craft too. And I really think that um, a lot of on the job learning was really helpful too.
Mm.
My graphic design career, learning how to use programs in different ways than I did in school, like in
Mhm.
classes. So, uh, yeah, mostly self taught, but not totally without, you know, some art education
Mhm.
background. Yeah.
Yeah, I so often feel like self-taught is just, I feel like it's underrated by a lot of
Hmm.
people who are in different professions, especially let's say music or whatever, but
Hmm.
there's so much to be said about just your passion driving your art and just your interest in it, because you can take your interest and you can kind of develop it the way you want to develop it, and that brings out the uniqueness that I think a lot of people struggle with in more
Yeah.
professional environments. I don't know if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. And I think that the way that I hear that, it sounds like, you know, if we feel like we have to create on certain terms,
Yeah.
that it's like you're only good if you've had this education, or if you've taken
Hmm.
this
Mm.
class, or if you've, you know, done XYZ, then that means you're a creator or an artist. And I think you're right that people lose sight when they get wrapped up in that, that
Yeah.
it's like, well, just make what you want to make.
Right.
You know, no one is stopping you. And I feel like I say that to a lot of people at conventions when people compliment the books, or and say, oh, you know, I can't even draw a stick figure. I'm like, yes, you can.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I know you can.
Hmm.
Have you tried drawing a stick figure lately?
Hmm.
And you know, I also say, and I get to meet a lot of young people too, because a lot of young people like my comics. I have other comics that I've worked with publishers on, their like middle reader level,
Hmm.
and they're like, I want to be an artist, I'm aspiring artist. And I'm like, well, are you drawing right now? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, then you are an artist. You know,
Hmm.
we I think we put labels on stuff, and people think there's some kind of gate they have to,
Mm.
you know, jump to call themselves creative. And it's like, no, no, you just do you.
Definitely.
Preach it.
Yeah.
Preach it. That's what we're all about. We spread that
Yeah.
creativity. We spread that empowerment. We go, you can do it. Just
Yeah.
believe.
And I think that's why, you know, like at the conventions that, you know, we've gotten to be at, that was a big connection of just feeling like, you know, I said it earlier to describe like Altar Girl. I think I said self-indulgent.
Hmm.
Mm.
And that sounds like maybe it's like, oh, it's bad to be self-indulgent, but it's kind of like I'm creating for me, and other people are enjoying that, and it's resonating, you know, with people who, you know, I don't necessarily have to explain, you know, the feeling to. I don't know, sometimes like in storytelling, um I think it's like a Lewis Carroll quote, and I'm going to feel really bad if I got it wrong, but it's like, we read to know we're not alone.
Hmm.
You know, when you read something, or you listen to a song, or, you know, watch even a TV show or a movie, and you just feel like you get it on a level you might not even be able to necessarily explain to like even your best friend sitting next to you, you know, like, but you just feel that connection. And I think that that's what I love about storytelling.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
I
have
I
something?
almost
I'm just thinking about the Lewis Carroll quote.
I think it is Lewis Carroll. I'm gonna feel bad. I guess it's something it's totally Googleable, but I'm gonna feel bad if I got it. Maybe C.S. Lewis.
I don't know.
Lewis.
Yeah.
Rachel's normally the one who's good with quotes.
I don't know this one.
Well, this
Yeah.
is a quote that nobody will know. We can just put unknown next to it.
Yeah.
Anonymous. There we
Here,
go.
I'm gonna Google. It's C.S. Lewis. It's not Lewis Carroll. It's C.S. Lewis.
You were halfway there. You had a
Yeah.
Lewis. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I was
Good
like,
timing.
ugh. Yeah.
We care about informing people
Yes.
on this podcast.
Yes. So a quick Google will always, well, I hope will always give you the correct information. I don't know.
um, so I'm curious about your journey as a self-published
Hmm.
author. If, what made you want to take that path instead of trying to publish? I know you kind of touched on it, but I want to know more about that because I myself am working on self-publishing. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of curious to hear about it.
Well, I think with Altar Girl, I know that when I was first doing it, I went to, I think the first convention I did not have any books. I had like a portfolio book that had the first 10 pages of the comic printed out. I think that's all I
Mm.
had online at the time. Or maybe I had a couple chapters, but um I kind of went around thinking maybe I could pitch it, maybe, some publishers, but I feel like because it was such a like deeply personal work, self-publishing was the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to have to answer to anybody but myself. I think I might have said that too, that it just felt like it's deeply personal. I have I have the tools, that I can make the website. I can do the design. I can, write the story. This is all me. So this is going to stay with me rather than, giving it out to someone else who, with a publisher, I think the biggest pro of going to a publisher's distribution,
Mm-hmm.
like getting, more eyes on your work. They're going to have teams of people promoting things and access and places and rooms, that you might not have access to. Um, but that was not necessarily important for me with Altar Girl.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted that to be my thing, that maybe people would notice that and I could work on other things. And that is kind of what I've gotten to do, that people see my work and then they're like, oh, you would be a good fit for this project,
Mm-hmm.
with this other story and these characters that I can love just as much and feel invested in. But, I also know that, I guess it's about creative control, the
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
self-publishing.
Yeah.
And uh, there's just a lot of stuff that when I was first doing this was not out there yet. And so avenues like Kickstarter, where I could raise the funds in a relatively easy way, for the printing, and my pretty much all of my campaigns, I've set my goal at, this is what it costs for me to do this. And I'm not even including, and here's what it would cost for me to, if I paid myself,
Mm.
like, which I think it's easy for me to tell other people, you should do that. You should put a price tag on that, because even though it's you doing the work, that's worth something. If you were working for a publisher, if you were working for somebody else, you'd be getting paid for that work. But when you're doing it yourself, you're like, oh, it's fine. I'm doing it from the heart. But I want to be better about that for myself too. So that's why I do things like Patreon and stuff. So just kind of knowing that, what I'm doing is for me, but, and that has value in itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I kind of rambled that answer, but with the self-publishing, but I can see how there are stories and things that I have that I feel good about wrapping those up in a bow and presenting them to a publisher and saying, hey, here's a cool idea. I'd love to do this and we could work together, and I'm open to the feedback, and pair me, with a colorist or an editor, and that I have stories there that feel like open to that very collaborative comics process, which I really do love. And I have gotten to do, on a couple different titles. But for me, with the self-publishing, Alter Girl was very much like this is for me. I'm keeping this one,
Mm-hmm.
close to the chest.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Definitely.
So I think it depends on, what you're kind of looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's your similar feeling with, you self-publishing, that you kind of are like, I want to do this for the creative control that I'll have.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I have a hard time. I'm not very good at collaborating with people, and I almost am embarrassed to say that because I feel like I'm not a very nice person to say that because I'm like I don't
That's
know if I
okay.
can write, but I'm very independent with my work, and I have a hard time. I just don't even know how to work with people if I'm being honest. It's like it's almost like I just want to. I have this idea and I just run in it.
Yeah.
I just charge at that in that direction, and so I completely agree with the control element of it. Like just wanting to have that creative control for me is the most important thing. And
Hmm.
even if it is a harder path in some ways because you don't have that distribution, you don't have that marketing, you don't have
Yeah.
that upfront cash. So yeah, I was just curious to know just what your experience has been with that. But you definitely answered my question there. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I think it's totally fine to understand and recognize and be like, "Hey, I work best with me.
Yeah.
I know, you know, what I want and these are my goals and I don't think there's any, you know, one way to do it or like
Mhm.
a bad way to
Mm.
do it. You know,
Yeah.
you're being true to yourself and that's all I think we can do in this
Mhm.
world. So, I think it's a good thing.
Oh, thank you. I think my boyfriend was talking about a comic book that he's been really liking that I thought was self-published recently. It's like something
Mm.
with monsters. Does anybody know about that? I don't
Hmm.
remember what his
There's
name
a
was.
lot.
Yeah.
But it's like a huge deal right now, and they're like selling out and they're like
Mm.
getting huge, and it's like it's amazing how far the self-publishing route has come. Like I feel like even 10 years ago it would not have been as easy as it is today because there's so many different companies now you can self-publish through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
do you sell your books on your website and that's it, or do you go through like Amazon too?
So, I currently only sell through my online shop.
Mhm.
That is where when you do things, you know, yourself and independently, I have to say, well, I can't do it all because I manage it that way. I do not do it through Amazon though. I think I've seen some of my books listed on there. I think I saw like a signed copy of a book and I was like, oh, I guess they don't want it anymore. They must have got it at a convention or something, which is fine. But what I did a lot more in the beginning of my career, which I haven't done as much lately, is I would go to comic shops and
Mm.
sell them copies of the book. So some people do consignment, which
Mhm.
Yep.
is like, you know, we'll pay you once it sells. Some people will buy it for half the cover price. So
Mhm.
I usually tried to do that route if I could. But yeah, in the beginning, I was going to all my local comic shops and saying like, "Hey, can I get these in the shops?" And I I did not get turned away anywhere. Everyone was
Oh
super
wow.
wonderful.
That's awesome.
I've also donated copies to libraries when I've done like library
Mm.
talks. I've also done like school talks where I do like a workshop and sometimes they'll buy books. I've even worked with a couple Girl Scout troops to help them get theirs like a comics artist badge.
Nice.
So that kind of started in a weird way. Like someone found me and was like, could you do this? And I was like, oh, okay. And then I told some neighbors who had Girl Scout troops and I was like, you know, you should hit me up for your troop. You know, yeah, my kid plays with your kid or like, you know, we're neighbors and stuff like that. But yeah, I
That's
lost my train of thought, but yeah, doing a lot of stuff, trying to get the book out there. Um, when I would travel, also, I would try to bring books with me. I
mhm.
had family that lived in LA for a time, so I wanted to go to all of the cool comic shops in LA. So I had where the Nerdist podcast, that shop's
Mm.
not
Yeah.
in existence anymore, but like
Huh.
I got one of my copies in there, and I think there was one. I think that I'm bringing up LA because I think it was Golden Apple Comics that they were like, no thanks. And I was like,
Oh,
oh, okay. That's like the only time a shop ever said, like, no, we're not interested.
Oh wow.
So, but yeah, like, yeah, anytime I would travel, I'd just throw a couple books, you know, in my suitcase and see if there was a bookshop that I could, you know, take it to. So, very, yeah, low budget distant marketing.
I love that you're saying that because that's exactly kind of my approach with Number Two Pencil Man now. Is I've been
Yeah.
going to different stores in the area, being like, "Hey, I got this comic book. Like, we could do a collaboration. Maybe I could do a signing. We can get some copies in." And I've actually gotten various responses from the comic book stores in my area.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe because I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting though. Like, I
It might
feel.
be you have more of like the issues and my
Hmm.
books are more like the thicker like trade.
Yeah.
So
mhm.
I wonder if that affects it at all.
That is what I was about to say, because I think, like, since yours is more a graphic novel, it has more
Yeah.
of a story in one, to where mine, they're like, okay, well, how fast are you going to get these out? And I feel like
Right.
that's what they're looking at with the individual, like, issue ones. Now, I've already had a couple bookstores tell me that when I compile like a whole arc into a graphic novel that they'd be willing to carry the
Yeah.
book. But
Yeah.
like comic book stores, and there's even some that just don't do indie comics in this area anymore
Mm,
for us, which is
mhm.
kind of something that I found quite shocking because I'm like, wow, you think like more comic book stores would be like indies, yeah, let's get them in, especially
Yeah.
if you're like local. And I've had like maybe two or three so far that have even gotten back to me and be like, yeah, let's work
Yeah.
together. And it's so interesting to see the approach, but I love what you're saying and how you're modeling it. Like that's kind of what we have to do to get our books out there in the very beginning. It's like, okay, we don't have like a reputation yet for our stories, so it's like you're starting from the ground and you have to build it up. And it's like the more conventions you go to, the more stores you can kind of pitch it to,
Hmm.
schools, libraries, like you said. I actually just am starting my library route. I've had three libraries in the Lancaster area like contract me to do summer reading programs for
Awesome.
kids as number two
Awesome.
pencil man. So it's like it's really cool to hear like you're kind of like giving us not just like the marketing aspect, but the other opportunities that come along with being an indie author, creator, artist.
Yeah.
And there's so many out there, and I don't feel like people talk about it a lot. So it's really cool to
Yeah.
hear your experience on your marketing strategies, how you got it out there. And I also wanted to add a question earlier when Rachel was talking about the indie publishing and
Hmm.
self-publishing. Um, I wanted to know because I also very similarly route self-publish number
Yeah.
two pencil man, and I wanted to know because you have the website and because you do comic cons, what do you feel is the best way to get popularity behind your books? Like, have you had more success online with people finding it, or have more people come to you at comic books, and that's how it like kind of caught on online?
I'd definitely say that nothing beats in-person
Mm.
networking.
Mm-hmm.
And like as far as like popularity, um, that is like so like abstract, you
Mm.
know? And I do think that I've tried to, put mirrors on like webtoons and other, webcomic places to get people, and I don't really feel like that is a place where you can really engage. Like even if
Mm.
people are reading it,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really getting any comments there. And that's why I definitely think, that's not to say that I haven't, met a lot of people through online channels who are people I've literally never met in person, but like I feel like
Mm.
I know them really well. I feel like I'm like invested in them as much as they're invested in me. And I really like Patreon for that reason. I like having a Patreon because that's a way that people are, literally supporting, my career financially by just, paying monthly to see art and content and the comic, getting that early
Mm.
access. Um, but yeah, nothing beats the in person, because I feel like, that's the most intimate. You get to, talk face to face. And I
Oh,
think
yeah.
what I think it's great that we can be connected, you know, like we can be doing this podcast right now. We can be, chatting on socials and stuff, but I think we're missing out on that, like that intimate factor in
Yeah,
person.
definitely.
So,
It's
and you
it's
also get to
becoming.
meet other creatives too, like
Yeah.
at conventions, like how we met. So
Yeah.
you're meeting, potential fans and readers, but you're also meeting, other creatives, and we all kind of have that same heart where we want to support each other too. We want to see each other succeed. So that is also really invigorating.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I Yeah, you said about fans. You know, this was something I never expected when I started creating something. It was so
Mhm.
crazy to me when I got the first couple people who started to engage with me regularly and actually would like come up to me and be like, "I'm a huge fan of your comic book." And
Yeah.
man, it's amazing because, like you said, you get to build those connections. I have
Mhm.
people come into cons just to come chat with me sometimes. And it's like, this is awesome. You meet so
And
many cool people.
I
It's
was going to
amazing.
say, don't you think that that's better, even if you had like just two or three people who came up to you and were like, "Oh my gosh, I love your comic. I can't wait to
Mhm.
see what happened next," versus, you know, 10,000 likes on a picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the term popularity and like success,
Mm-hmm.
I really think about these things now in my old age of 19. Like I said before, I'm 19. But but I really think about those things a lot, and that I think when we're younger we really put these labels on like what it
Mm-hmm.
means to be successful, what it means to be popular. And I'm grateful that if even one person is reading and connecting with it, and that means the world to me. That makes me feel popular. That makes me feel successful.
Hmm.
So,
That's beautifully put. I
yeah,
love it. Did you
thanks.
have something, Katie?
Maybe a possible title for this podcast episode would be "Success is Being True to Yourself."
Yeah, it
Um,
is. It really is.
Yeah.
yeah, you don't always. I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't seem very. It's not a very common definition of success.
Yeah,
I've never heard anyone else really say it that directly in that language
I
before.
think yeah, I think you're right. I think it's being that's yeah, all you can do is be true to yourself, and I think it's so easy, especially when we're being creative, that we're trying to put ourselves in these categories and
Mm,
give ourselves these labels like I do this, I do that, and that makes me money, and
Mhm.
that's because this. And yeah, I think, everybody said it earlier, multi creative, multi passionate, like, that it's hard to put a label, I think, on folks like us. And
Mhm.
I think that's a good thing. And I think that, success, this like linear success that,
mm,
story we're kind of fed, it's like, nah, I don't think that's true. I
Mhm.
don't think that's actually how success works.
Yeah.
Am I happy? That's all that matters.
Yeah.
I love
Right.
that.
You
Yeah.
know, I think so much of what you're talking about with going to different bookstores and just saying, "Hey, are you interested in picking up my book?" I mean, that's how like so many printing presses would have started. Like
Yeah.
at one point they started where you started, and obviously now they're big. But like one of my favorite examples of self-published is Virginia Woolf, who's one of the most famous authors.
Yes.
She did not want to, work with other people, and she set up her printing press in her home, and it's
Yeah.
like a subsidiary of Penguin now, Hogarth Press.
Uh-huh.
It's like, there's there Jane Austen did that as well with is it Sense and Sensibility, or at least one of those novels. And
Mm.
I just think that
I should know that.
we have this illusion sometimes that success comes in these like in the movies where it's like, oh, somebody just noticed me, and then I'm in New York City, and then all of a sudden there's all
Yeah.
these people and I'm on
Yeah.
stage, right? But it's really not. It's like building a building. It takes brick by brick. It's like
Yeah.
one brick after the other. It's like small steps, and it's just building up that fan base by connecting with people individually.
And I think, to your point too, you mentioned two, very well-known female authors, and they weren't given the space.
Hmm.
They made the space. And so, I think that applies to anyone being creative, that, and I can definitely, resonate with that thought. I think I'm feeling that thought as like a, female comic book creator, that it's like I didn't see the space for me as a kid, and I made the space, and that, and I want other people to come into the space too. So like starting, a printing press, and being like, and I'm printing my stuff, but also, hey, everyone else, your podcast, give space to, people who just want to talk about what they're working on. And
Oh
Hmm.
so
yeah.
I think that's great.
People get the most passionate about what they love doing, and that was one of my main points for wanting to start this podcast. And when I met Rachel Frey, and of course I knew Katie the longest, when I met everybody and we just came together, we're like, yeah, we want to encourage other creators. We want to give them that spotlight, because it's hard being an indie creator. It can be, trying to get your stuff out there to an audience that can really connect with it. That first initial push is always the hardest. And if you can just have a platform where people can just come on and just share their heart behind the project, you get to know them and
Yeah.
see that passion just come out of them. It gives you more to see, more to follow, and hopefully can help build up others in the future, is what the main hope is. And yeah,
Yeah.
we just love it, and it's really the whole essence behind what we're doing.
Well,
Hmm.
this has been like so fun. I'm so glad I got to come on and talk with you guys about stuff and just also to hear you guys, and more about, I know a bit about your story, but I got to hear about Rachel and both of you guys. Like, yeah, this is great.
Yeah, no, we're super excited that you could come.
Yeah.
I know you said you have some time things here. I just wanted to ask one
Yeah.
more thing because we've been talking about your comic book a lot
Yeah.
tonight.
Uh-huh.
We, for the audience members out there, whether they're watching on YouTube or via our audio platforms, can you give us a brief synopsis of your story and what
Sure.
Altar Girl is?
Yeah, sure. So, Altar Girl is definitely a like shoujo manga inspired story. Um, I think the quick pitch I would give it is it's bullies and besties, angels and demons, magic key necklaces, and all the things that I love about anime. But Altar Girl is about a typical schoolgirl who ends up having a magic key necklace that is one of the two keys to heaven and earth. And she finds that out when a dead boy from the 1920s and twin angels come into her life and say that they're going to help her talk to her longtime crush, the most popular boy in school. And then the fun just goes from there.
Awesome.
That's incredible. Such
Yeah.
a love letter to like anime, I feel. It's
Yes. Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. All the stuff I love about
Wow. That is awesome.
it.
And I guess on top of that, tell everybody where can they find you on the interwebs?
Sure. So you can read Alter Girl at alter-girl.com, and alter is spelled with an A, like an altar. The main character's name is Ashley Alters. Um, and my Patreon is patreon.com/Kata Kane, Katakane. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm kind of lurking on there. It's Robokiss, Robokiss.
Such
And then
awesome.
you'll find me. Just type it into Google like I did with that C.S. Lewis quote a minute ago.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything that they wanted to say before we wrap it up?
Well,
Um,
I did have just one question.
Sure.
Just curious, probably because a lot of people have asked me this question. Do you see yourself in your characters?
Definitely.
Nice.
I think that every single character in Alta Girl has some aspect of something I find relatable. There's like not one character that I would be like, oh, like Ashley is the main character. I would not say that I am Ashley. There are
Mm,
definitely things Ashley does that I don't relate to. But
Mhm.
overall, there is an aspect in like every single character that I feel is like a trait that I find relatable. So definitely I'm writing from a place of knowing, of feeling. So
Mhm.
yeah.
That's
that's
really neat.
awesome.
I'm
Yeah.
really excited to read this now.
Yeah. Well, you can read it online right now. So
Yeah,
I will
enjoy.
do just that.
that goes to you viewers. Read it. Check it
Yeah.
out. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
yeah, I can say it's pretty awesome. I've
Yeah.
actually read it, so
I
I
think
Yeah.
I've
would
read like the
recommend.
first one. I
Five
didn't
out of
get through
five
all of it.
stars.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, this is awesome. Kata, thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah,
Before we go, Rachel, is there anything that you wanted to share, like about what you're doing?
I mean, I think I say this every week, but I'm working on a novel. It'll be out soon, and it is. You
ooh,
can check out the first chapter at elegantbomb.com. And I am working on an album called Glass Wings. So, not sure when that will be out, but I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's very experimental right now. So, and I think I'm
cool.
probably going to just do releasing some songs coming up here with just piano and voice, just because I feel like doing it. So, that should be fun as well. So just stay tuned. You can follow my Instagram at the what is it? The Elegant Bomb doc or no at the Elegant Bomb. That's my handle. I can't even remember.
That's awesome. Super excited for that. Katie, anything you got going on?
Well, because of
It's
time, I'm
fine.
not gonna read a poem, but
Yeah.
I'm just gonna practice. So I am currently working on preparing my first book of poetry, which is gonna be something like a collection of poems. that I've written over time just to get myself started. I guess I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to be publishing that and everything, but right now I'm just trying to get it all done in one document. And I'm also working on the storyline for a anime meets Jane Austen graphic novel, which I'm super pumped about. And
That'd be great.
also in the hopefully near future, I'm going to try to be working on creating more of my own social media presence and making different things for content creation because I'm also a multi-creative person. So
That's right.
yeah, that's all I
Cool.
have for now.
That's so exciting.
Oh yeah, she's got lots of big things coming. I'm super excited.
Yeah,
I've been watching from the sidelines here, like, oh yeah, that's my wife. She's doing amazing things.
that's great.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Um, I also have an update. Number two Pencil Man issue 2 is officially, by the point that this thing is out, it is finished. So
Awesome.
we
Yay.
are getting closer to publishing it. Probably just we just need to go through the editing phase, grammar, and just making sure that the colors are all good. But other than that, it's pretty much done. Frey did a fantastic job. I'm super excited for issue 2. I think it's going to be better than issue 1. Uh, oh yeah, lots of craziness. It picks up from where it leaves off in issue 1, and then it just gets crazier. And I'm like, yes, seeing it come to life, no better feeling. It's been amazing. Um, yeah, we just got a lot of cool things coming up. My children's book that I illustrated and wrote back in high school will be following it probably in the next month or two, so stay tuned for that. And I picked up some paints and I'm going to start painting soon. So I'm
Nice.
reviving that creative passion back. And oh, yeah, I think this is a great time for creatives. So if you guys want to create out there, just do it. And that brings us to the end of this episode. Again, everybody go check out Kata Kane on all of her social media, her Instagram, and she's got the amazing websites where you can actually buy her book and you can read it online as well. We'll have that in the episode description. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please consider giving us a thumbs up, maybe commenting, interacting, sharing us. It always helps us to build this platform so that we can get other people in the spotlight and create a bigger platform for indies everywhere. And if you are an indie creator out there and you want to be featured on the podcast, reach out to us. We are the Dreamscape Empyrean on all of our socials. You can find us there. You can DM us. And if you want to be on the show, we can schedule you down for a time and we'll get you on because this is a podcast for all creators of all types. We've had a clown on the show. We've had a doctor of psychology. We've had multiple comic book writers, musicians, and a small business. The list really goes on and on. So if you are any of those things or anything else that you consider yourself a creative, which pretty much is anything, and you want to be on, let us know. And yeah, we can't wait to hear from you and have you on the show. And other than that, it brings us to the end of the episode. So thank you, dreamers, for tuning in. And until next time, we will see you on Indie Synergy Exchange. Bye bye.
Thanks.